First of all, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. Today, as you probably guessed, we're going to be talking all about the Vercel workflow. But I want to take a moment at the start just to introduce me and my colleague Peter and to provide some context on what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm Dom. I'm from the product advocate team here at Vercel. My amazing colleague Peter is one of our sales engineers. And what we're going to be talking about today is the Vercel workflow. So a lot of you know Vercel primarily as a hosting platform. Right? It's somewhere where you can take any front-end framework or static site generator and deploy it super easily in the cloud. And Vercel is that, but it's also much more, right? When you deploy your app on Vercel, you're not just switching to a new hosting provider, you're also adopting a new way of building software. The way that you build on Vercel is fundamentally different in some subtle but important ways from the way that you do elsewhere. And hosting is kind of easy to think about and measure, I think. It's easy to see the benefits of hosting, your website's exposed to your users, and it's easy to see the costs, right? You've got your monthly AWS bill. But when it comes to workflow, analyzing the costs and benefits are a little bit more difficult, right? There are a lot of costs involved in workflow, from everything from hiring to maintaining your developer organization, but there are tons of benefits too. And I think when I speak to our customers about what they love about Vercel, it does tend to, it tends to be the workflow aspects, right? It's the developer experience. And it's that great feeling that you get when you're kind of in a flow state and you can ship code and feel productive and feel happy. And yeah, at Vercel, we definitely believe that developer productivity and developer happiness are very closely linked. And that's really what we aim to improve. So that was our brief intro. I hope that provides some context on what we're going to talk about today. You're probably wondering what I'm talking about actually looks like in practice. So I'm going to hand over to Peter now. And he's going to talk a little bit about what the Vercel workflow looks like in terms of our automated CI and CD. Peter.
CI/CD, or continuous integration and continuous deployment, or continuous delivery, is a process that's been co-opted by many organizations for their own development pipeline. True to its name, the CI/CD process allows teams to quickly iterate on their products and services by decreasing that time between gathering feedback from your users, your analytics services you may be using, or any other types of data sources, and then using this feedback to inform and advance the development process. This formula for success means more focused and leaner development cycles, and is now generally regarded as standard fare for many organizations that work in technical product development. Which brings us to the subject of our first presentation. Specifically, how does Vercel facilitate the CI/CD process for my organization? i.e., how can Vercel help my team ship faster and be more efficient? Well, Dom, as you know, the Vercel platform won't write your code for you, but it does provide that optimized pipeline for building your application, as well as providing a production-ready place for your application to live once it's been deployed. I've recorded a short video segment, which I'll show here momentarily, that covers basic deployment for your Next.js application to the Vercel platform and demonstrates how some of the CI/CD principles are already baked into the platform.
All right, now I'm going to show you how we can get a new project started on the Vercel platform. In this clip, we're going to cover importing your project from your cloud-hosted code repository. Next, we'll build and deploy the application on the Vercel platform. Then, after our project is live, we'll review our project settings and add an integration. Specifically, we'll add the Checkly integration to our project so we can run some tests at build time. From there, we'll go into our code repository and make some changes. Finally, we'll watch those changes go live as our application redeploys automatically. But we'll also show you how you can revert this new deployment to the previous one if you wish. So, without further ado, let's begin, shall we? Kicking things off, we're taking a peek at my Vercel dashboard. This is what your own Vercel dashboard may look like if you haven't any projects created yet. You'll see that my team is using a Vercel Pro Plan subscription, which will allow us access to a basic set of paid features. That said, with few exceptions, nearly everything I'll be showing you in this video clip can be accomplished on a hobby tier plan, So if you're feeling like dipping your toe in, there's very little in the way to keep you from getting started. This big button that I've been ignoring is the Create a New Project button, which is where we need to be. So let's give this a click and see where it takes us. On the next screen, you can see that we're met with a list of our projects that are retrieved from my connected GitHub account. For this demonstration, I'm going to upload a simple little WebGL project that I created in Next.js. Let's go ahead and type that into the search field. And we can see that the autocomplete finds my project quickly. Before I proceed to the next step, let's take a look at all the work that we don't need to do. Since my application is written in Next.js, it's one of the 33 frameworks that Vercel offers zero configuration support for, so there shouldn't need to be anything else that you need to set in your build configuration settings. That said, if you wish, you can override some of the settings here, including the build command, the directory, as well as the install command. You can even set environmental variables which will be unique per deployment. That said, it's time to go ahead and hit that deploy button, so let's do that now. And now we've kicked off our application build process. Here, under the Building tab, we can see a complete list of all of the build logs associated with our application. Any errors that might result from any of our dependencies that we're using will bubble up here, and we should expect to see them in our build logs. And now it looks like our build is completing. We can see that our Next.js application has deployed successfully to Vercel. So let's go ahead and take a look at this in the Vercel dashboard. Now that we've deployed to the Vercel network, we can take a look at our list again. We've managed to successfully import a project from our cloud-hosted code repository, and we've built and deployed our application to the Vercel network. The next step on our list is to review some of our settings and to add an integration. So let's go ahead and do that now. You'll notice that my production branch has been given a unique subdomain on vercel.app. Here I can click for a live version of my app and review anything that might need to be changed. My app is pretty simple right now. There's not much to it. Even the link in the middle is broken with a 404 error. So since there's not much to look at, let's go back to the Vercel dashboard. The first stop is going to be inside of our Settings tab, and then under General. Here is where we can review any of our custom build and development settings that we might have set for our application during its build time. We can even set a custom root directory. Any of these settings can be set after you initially deploy your application and don't need to be decided at the moment you import it. One of the useful features that comes with our Pro plan is the ability to add as an additional add-on a password protection for any of your preview deployments. You can even protect your production deployment the same way. This allows you to share any of your preview links as well as your production deployments with your internal stakeholders for review without exposing them to the broader public internet. We can even assign custom domains to our application. The next step is going to be our integrations. Let's go ahead and browse the marketplace. The integration we're going to be adding is called Checkly, and it allows us to perform tests during our build process. Let's go ahead and add this integration now. When we add the Checkly integration, it allows us to set a project or team scope that we define. Here, I'm going to select our Pro Plan team. And then I'm going to apply it to the very specific project that we've been working with. After a few settings, the integration has been added to our application. Now that we've added our Checkly integration to our project, we can remove it from our to-do list. Next up, it's time to make some changes and then redeploy our application to the Vercel network. In order to make the changes, we're going to do this directly through GitHub. I'm going to selectively edit our index page directly from the editing modal. And now I'm going to deploy these changes directly to the main branch. Now that we've kicked off our deployment, we only have one more item on our list, and that's to check our production deployment to make sure everything looks okay. Let's go ahead and look at our build process. One of the additional steps that will be added to this build that wasn't included in our previous initial build was that we'll be running the Checkly integrations that we added earlier. Due to the password protection we put on our deployment, we should expect one of these tests to fail with a 401 error. As expected, we see the first check fails with a 401 error. Because it's holding up our ability to deploy our application, we're going to skip this check for now. And now, we're ready to view our application. And we can see that the title tag has been updated to reflect the new spelling. Now that we've pushed our updated content to our application, we're all done with our list. However, there's one more step that I'm going to show, and that's how to revert the changes that we just made. In order to revert these changes, we're going to promote an earlier branch into production. This can be done through the Deployments tab of your Vercel dashboard. In this case, we're going to go all the way to the beginning, and we're going to promote our initial commit branch to production. And now, this has kicked off our final build process, where we will revert the content to the state of our initial commit. Similar to our last deployment, we'll expect the first Checkly test to fail due to the password protection. We'll go ahead and skip this test so that we can promote this branch into production. And now that our revert has completed, we can review our final production branch to see the updated title content change. And now we can see that it reflects that from our initial commit. Thank you very much for joining me on this demonstration. I hope that this has been informative for you.
Okay, Peter. Thanks a lot for sharing that. Hopefully what your takeaway was from that video was that, possibly unlike our Zoom webinar process, that the Vercel automated CI/CD is very low config. You don't need to do very much in order to get it working. It'll work out of the box. You know, personally, my experience as a developer was that, previously when I was working at an agency, I would often need to depend on backend developers to make changes to CI. And I'd also need to do a fair amount of testing myself in the browser when I was, for example, checking the performance of my websites. So it's nice to be able to handle those things myself via Vercel, and also to be able to automate some of those performance tests by doing them at build time rather than in the browser via Lighthouse. So far, as I said, we've been covering Vercel's workflow in terms of its impact for the developer. But yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we very much believe that development is something which involves the whole team, from design to marketing to legal. And yeah, the Vercel's vision for software development is that it really brings in all of those stakeholders. Right now, there's no one platform that allows you to develop software with the involvement of your whole team. But in the future, there will be, and that platform will be Next.js, Vercel's in-browser solution for real-time collaboration. And yeah, to continue this workflow theme, Peter, I believe you have a small video on Next Live that you can share with us next.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. We were able to record a brief overview of the Next.js Live product, which I think does a good job of previewing some of the tools that Vercel is working on to facilitate better collaboration when you're building with the Next.js framework. So let me go ahead and show that now. All right, thank you so much for joining us for this Next.js Live demonstration. I'm going to show you how to use Next.js Live to get members of your team working together on your projects in closer iteration cycles. Here you can take a look at the Vercel dashboard. I've got a sample project up. It's my virtual event starter kit. In order to kick off the Next.js Live mode, you can just use this button here to activate it. Otherwise, I've got it running over in another tab, so I'll just go ahead and click on here. Now I'm running Next.js Live mode, and this is basically what allows me to change elements in real time and comment and share with my team. You can tell I'm running Next.js Live mode by the presence of this menu item here that shows my user profile as well as the code and comment buttons. We've also got a couple of other options available to us. We've got an inspector tool that we can use to, similar to like our web dev tools, look at individual elements that we might have coded in our React application. We can see here that our hero element is a little dated, so I'm going to go ahead and just leave a comment here. Commenting on our application is similar to creating a task list if you've ever used something like Google Docs. So we can just make a note for our design team here. And I've gone ahead and just created a comment. If I decide that I want to resolve this and I've changed my mind about it, I can go ahead and click that little checkbox and it removes it. But then the most powerful feature that I think I want to show you is our coding menu. So this will open up essentially a VS Code style user interface that allows you to review your entire Next.js project, including all of the assets and files that you would see in your repository. Here I can actually use this to make changes and see them reflected in my preview. But I can also use all of my tools in conjunction to get a sense for where this element is being referenced in my code. So as you can see, I used my inspector tool and I clicked on it and I was able to pull up my hero function and component immediately. So this way I can actually make changes as I'd like. I hope this has been informative for you, but Next.js Live will, we believe, help teams iterate faster and ship products with more velocity by allowing your team members who might not traditionally be used to working together do more in parallel. All right, so as you can see, Next.js Live promises to bring many types of stakeholders together for your next project on Vercel. In software development, Dom, as you mentioned earlier, we often talk about how development work can be simplified using Vercel, but as anyone who's launched software can attest, there's a bunch of folk that are involved in the actual release that are not necessarily developers. Your product development cycle may include input from design teams, accessibility consultants, copy and documentation writers, as well as a whole slew of other internal stakeholders that might need to contribute work or provide their approvals. Next.js Live brings us closer to a world where your entire product team and all of those associated with it can have a more unified workflow. But switching gears a little bit, I want to move on to our next topic, which is another workflow tool that I want to show that Vercel has recently added to its inventory, and which teams may benefit from, and that is our new Terraform provider. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here one moment. Terraform, which is a powerful infrastructure as code tool, has gained a lot of traction in the last several years with DevOps teams looking to distill down their environments into repeatable configurations. Some of the resources that are available to us in the Terraform provider are the ability to do things like kickoff deployments, as well as view some information related to your project. This can be really useful if you're developing in a decoupled architecture and you're looking for a more streamlined way to do things like stage feature branches for your application alongside different iterations on your API gateway, for example. Terraform makes staging both at the same time a snap right from your terminal.
Okay, Peter, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, so just to recap what we've covered so far, we've gone through Vercel's automated CI/CD, Next Live, and Vercel's automated Terraform provider. 3 aspects of the Vercel workflow. Just before I end, there's one more thing I wanted to point out. I mentioned to Andrew in the chat earlier that if any of you are interested in this stuff and you want to go deeper, you want us to give you a bit more of a personalized tour through the Vercel workflow, please feel free to reach out to the email address you see on your screen now. That's productadvocates@vercel.com. We'd love to talk more. Obviously, this webinar is designed to be relevant to everyone, so we've tried to cover some kind of beginning use cases, some more advanced stuff in Terraform, as well as a glimpse at the future in Next Live. But yeah, we would love to give you something more personalized, something more relevant to your use case. So yeah, whatever it is you're interested in, please just shoot an email over to productadvocates@vercel.com, or you can also use my personal email address in the chat. And yeah, we'd love to provide you with some more personalized value. I hope you've got some use out of this webinar today. Thanks so much, Peter, for sharing those videos. Definitely feel free to get in touch, and yeah, we'll be providing some more content like this in the future. So if this has been interesting to you, or if there's anything else that you'd like us to hold these webinars on, anything in particular, yeah, feel free to reach out with that as well. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining. Thanks, Peter, again for presenting. Yeah, I think that's all we got time for today. So yeah, thanks, everybody.